Hi everyone, it's the Catholic CEO Henry Kutarna. In this Catholic Business Wisdom series, we've been talking in the last few sessions about the Catholic business model, Catholic economy. So today I'd like to cover with you moral and ethical issues. I'm going to cover three different sections in this topic of moral and ethical issues. First, let's call it the prime directive, what we must do as Catholic business owners. Secondly, I'm going to mention a couple of things that we must do in practice, in not just theoretically, not just in principle, but actually in practice. And then I'm going to cover near the end about two or three different ethical dilemmas, standard, what I might call classical ethical dilemmas that you will face. And so we will cover very huge and big topic in a short period of time. First, let's go into then what I call the prime directive. In your Catholic business, whether you make something or provide a service, the necessity of you telling the truth is vital, number one. Now, let's be careful about what truth is. Truth does not mean that you must reveal to your customer every flaw and every weakness in your product or your service. In other words, there's a positive aspect to truth, and I'm not being relativistic on you, to direct attention to the positive features of your product or your service by accurate, truthful statements such that you can conclude what it does or does not do. That's the definition of truth. We are not obliged in the doctrine of truth to point out the negatives and the weaknesses. We want to be accurate, we want to be truthful, but we can favor in our discussions the positive, the good, the efficacious, the benefits of our product or service. We are not obliged to point out the negatives or the weaknesses. And so honesty is a variant of the truth, I guess you could say. Honesty means we don't have to reveal, the secret sauce. We don't have to reveal the intricate details of our patent. We don't have to reveal, the ingredients that go into our food product or our product that we build or make. We don't have to reveal that. We don't have to give up our secret sauce to people. That's not a definition of honesty either. However, there's another doctrine that is part of this prime directive, and that is what I call fairness or justice. And you know that in the church's teaching on justice, that we provide a simple definition. Justice is the act of providing to someone what is their due. What is their due? So in terms of a product or service, if you're building something or making something or doing something for a customer, their due, what is their due? Well, their due is clarity on the price, a fair price, value proposition that tells them what's being built and what's being made, how it compares to other products in the marketplace, and clearly states what's good and true and right and efficacious about your product or your service. The doctrine of justice, again, providing people what is their due, doesn't mean that you need to reveal the weaknesses or the flaws in your product. Now, you want to also, in terms of justice and fairness, you want to make sure that your product does what it says. It accurately does what you promise it to do, or you'll make it right. The prime directive then, lots of analysis you could cover on truth, honesty, fairness, and justice. Remembering that you're not obliged to reveal the weaknesses of your product, but on the other hand, in terms of justice, you will want to have an excellent product. You will want to make it according to the highest standards. You will want to make it according to higher quality. You will want to be better than your competitors. You will want to assemble, do the service, make the food, put the ingredients in not only the proper minimum legal format, but also to the highest standard and to the highest degree. This is not a simple formula. A right-thinking person with an informed mind and an informed conscience, I think, can follow this prime directive. Let's move then to what you can be doing in practice. Let's take a look at marketing. This is the area that most often leads to dishonesty or exaggeration or manipulation in the marketplace. And so, what would the Catholic business owner do in marketing? Well, we've said it before. You can use humor, you can use lightheartedness, you can use creativity, you can do everything possible to allow the customer to understand your product. You can put it in the best light, you can compare it to others, you can show your high quality, you can show your speed, you can show your efficiency. You can portray all of these things, but you would not do something like gross exaggeration. You would not lie. You would not make a claim. You would not make an exaggerated claim about your product or your service. You would not do bait and switch. There are loss leaders in stores, and I can understand that. I don't think that's not an immoral or unethical move. But bait and switch is, for example, if you did a loss leader and you advertised a certain product at a ridiculously wonderful price, and then you only had one of them in stock, or you had zero in stock, and your intent was to drive people to your store or your marketplace online, and then you substituted higher products for that. Bait and switch, or exaggeration, or bringing people into your store or your shop on a kind of a pretense is certainly something that you wouldn't do. You would make sure that you're not being exploitive in your advertising. And there are obvious measures of this. For example, you would not use sexual images. You would not use images that are demeaning to people, or that I would say indoctrinate you in accordance with some principles that are false, or that are unacceptable, or that are not Catholic. And so in your marketing, you would be careful not to be exploitive. You wouldn't exaggerate. You wouldn't do bait and switch. You wouldn't do loss leaders of the negative kind that are intended only to draw people into your store. This does leave still a lot of room, in my opinion, for good, clear, creative marketing, competitive marketing, delightful and interesting and unique. The use of music, the use of imagery, the use of words, the use of voiceovers, the use of a combination of all these things is still wide open to the Catholic business owner, I think, and I think that there's plenty of room here to maneuver. And another area in practice, what the Catholic business owner would do, I think, is in the area of warranty. If something goes wrong with your product, I think the Catholic position would be, in a spirit of generosity, you would make it right. And that means that you would have a fairly liberal warranty package. You would allow people to, let's say, return a product for a period of time. No one says you have to have a long time, and there's no teaching that would I think, dishonor that point. But a reasonable period of time for returns. You might copy the industry standard, the industry average. That's nothing wrong with that. You might even be a little bit more generous than that. You might go an extra few days or a week or two beyond what the industry claims, and so then you could offer a more generous return policy. Similarly with errors, if your product has a flaw in it or a fault, or you make a mistake in the service that you provide, you would, I think, definitely go back to that customer and make it right. And that means that you would spend the money, put in the time, do the correction, get the product back if you're going to fix it or replace it, and then get the product back for either disposal or refurbishment. But you would have a warranty policy that goes beyond the minimum legal requirement or the minimum industry standard for your area. The idea of making it right is very treasured by the consumer. You know it. If you go to a small hardware store, for example, down the street, instead of the big box chain a mile away, you're going to get a higher level of service. You're probably going to get a promise or a warranty that's more generous than what the big box will do. And of course, there's a price challenge for being a small player. You probably will have to charge higher prices if you're the local hardware store around the corner and you're not part of a big chain. You're an independent hardware store. But the concept of warranty, where we make it right, we correct our faults, we apologize if we've made a mistake, or if by some deliberate action or some accidental action we have harmed our customer or not kept our promise, not only would we make it right, but I think we would be sincerely generous in making the apology. This doesn't mean that you become a doormat. You don't have to grovel in front of your customer. There was an old saying when I was a kid, your money, your satisfaction guaranteed or your money back. Other people took that a little bit farther. I always found interesting. Satisfaction guaranteed or your money cheerfully refunded. Cheerfully refunded. No one says that anymore, and no one's cheerful when you get to returns. You go to the big box store, you line up at that return counter, and there's always, I don't know why this is, they have, in my opinion, they have people who are trained to minimize the return and to take advantage of the return policy. I think. Prove me wrong. There might be some big box store where that isn't the case, but I've always encountered someone who's rather sullen, who doesn't engage you in conversation, and simply matter-of-factly, wants to get the facts about the return of the product and why. There's no cheer, there's no friendly approach as you might find in the customer service aisles. Anyway, I could go on about the warranty idea. Another area of what to do in practice concerns quality assurance and claims that you make. So now I'm combining marketing and the warranty idea. If you make a claim about your product, then that claim should be valid, should be legit, should be testable, it should be provable, and it should be something that becomes your industry standard, your production standard, your service standard. So quality assurance is a big differentiator in the marketplace. Many people claim it. Most people say that, we are of the highest quality, we make the best quality product, and so on and so on. It's not true. You look around and you realize that there is a standard. Yes, I'm not claiming that there's no standard of quality. In fact, there's some legal precedents that are now pushing people to become more clear on the quality standards that they claim. But I think that the Catholic business owner would want to produce a higher quality standard than anybody else and make the claims accordingly, yes, but ensure that the practice of quality is kept as a high principle, as a high standard. I'm reminded of, the little Mexican restaurant in Texas that we go to often. They cook with love, they told us. They cook with love. They cook as if it's for their own family. So you're a customer, you walk in there, you sit down, they cook as if you're a family member. And that's not just a claim. I can attest that that's true. And I'm sure you've seen similar situations and cases all around where somebody does that. They lovingly, carefully attend to your needs as a customer, whether it's in the packaging, in the manufacturing, in the process, in the return policy, in the speed with which they handle your situation, and the generosity with which they hear your complaint or your input or your rating, and in a non-manipulative manner. So those are just a few in practice ideas. I'm going to turn now to a couple of standard classical ethical dilemmas. Let us say the image or perception of you as a Catholic business owner. If you claim to be Catholic, and I know that increasingly Catholic business owners are going to have to identify themselves as being Catholic, or at least, if not using those words exactly, claiming that they adhere to a higher standard and a higher principle. So that means that the image, the perception of people about your lifestyle, for example, must be in accord with what you claim in your business. And so if you're living in an unnatural lifestyle relationship, if you're living in a, let's call it a sinful, adulterous, or non-compliant relationship, shall we say, you're very difficult for you to claim that you're a Catholic business owner if you're not living in accord with the faith. And that doesn't mean that you liberalize and you stretch and you do all the things that modernism really tends to do. You literally live in accord with the faith and you accept everything in the faith, and so your lifestyle mirrors that. Now, the challenge, this is the ethical dilemma. That's one. The second one is, can you hire only Catholic staff? Well, probably not. The reality is, if you're a small business owner and a small shop, you make, you are a woodworker and you make rosaries and table altars and home altars and other imagery like that. Well, possibly you could hire only selectively Catholic people who are high quality craftspeople, but also live the faith in accordance with the doctrines of the Catholic Church. If you have a much bigger business, you're sort of a production plant, you've got a couple hundred employees, you're a large commercial landscaper. We know of a couple where they are overtly Catholic in their actions. They will speak openly about their Catholic faith with their employees, and they will live it. And they will welcome people from other different persuasions into the business, but clearly make known to them that this is a Catholic operation and we're going to operate in accord with Catholic principles. And I suppose that would mean everything from we don't work on Sunday, we don't do business on Sunday, we respect the family, we are more generous with our benefits and our salary than the rest of the world would say is the minimum requirement, and so on and so on. But the question is then still, if you have employees that live an unnatural lifestyle or an immoral lifestyle, can you in fact keep them on your staff? Can you in fact refrain from hiring them? So this is threading a needle in a very complex area. I can imagine that if you are portraying yourself as a Catholic business, let's say you're a Catholic gift store, Catholic bookstore, and you hire people that are wearing, a certain kind of t-shirt or displaying a certain kind of physical appearance that shows you what their lifestyle is, you're going to have to refrain from hiring that person. Or, you might have to think of another way. You might have to put them in the stock room in the back where no one sees them and no one can interact with them. The ones who are customer facing and customer interactive are going to have to be, put up front and center. Now, this goes to the so-called cake problem, baking a cake. You know the story. There's situations that still go on now where people will test you. They'll come into a Catholic or Christian bakery and ask you to decorate a cake or bake something for a certain kind of event that is inimical to the Catholic faith. What are you going to do? Well, the people that have fought this and have done test cases pay a big price. They pay a financial price, they pay a legal price, and they pay a price in terms of reputation loss among a certain community, as well as a reputation gain. The thing is, they're trying to run a small business. They don't have time to be in the public eye or fighting massive legal battles with big. And so I would say that an ethical dilemma is this one about lifestyle, not only yours, but that of your employees, and whether you can in fact even discriminate properly, or can you, by selective use of the law properly, put in front of your customers and be facing your customer with a lifestyle and a set of ethical principles that is actually positive to the Catholic faith. Customers, many Catholic businesses know that the customer that comes in the door or buys online or books your service is going to be of the general community out there. Sure, they're going to be of every persuasion. And of course, we are not a silo. We're not an isolationist group. In the Catholic economy, we believe that we will engage with the economy. And so that means that our customers are going to be people of all different persuasions, all different ethical and moral backgrounds. Some of them unsavory to us, some of them unacceptable to us. But the thing is, we still provide the service and we deal with them, but in a way that doesn't compromise our principles. We may overtly state our principles, we may less overtly act and state our principles, but in the end, we serve all the customers that come to us, and we are careful not to unjustly discriminate, as the Catechism says. As our Catechism says, we don't want to unjustly discriminate. We want to do well. So here you go. We could go on for a long time about moral and ethical issues in the Catholic business model, in the Catholic economy. I urge you to think about these things and create a set of principles for yourself, testing them always against what the Catholic faith teaches. The Catechism is a good source, as are the great encyclicals. God bless you and your business. It's the Catholic CEO, Henry Kutarna. See you next time. Thank you.